here. No, maybe we're not. We are live there. Hello and happy Easter. Welcome to some Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Mango.
And I'm your co-host, Buddy.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about our first impressions of WoW Midnight. But before we do that, Buddy, why don't you the folks at home what is we do on this podcast?
On this podcast, we like to talk about games, and today we are going to talk about some of our first impressions of the new World of Warcraft expansion. So, Midnight has come out. It came out about a month ago, a little more than a month ago, maybe like 6 weeks ago, I guess, technically at this point. But we have just finished most of the core content that is included in the game. So there was so obviously there was a little bit of an early access period. The storyline campaign questing goes live, and then you have this tiered system where it goes down the list, and you go, okay, well, week 1 and week 2, you can do some dungeons, and you can do some world content, and now you can get champion gear, you do delves, okay, and now you can do Mythic Plus, and the race to world first Mythic raids open, and all of that kind of stuff. And we're basically at the end of that process. The race to world first is probably going to end tonight, maybe. Both Liquid and Echo are on 0% pulls, though it does look like there is a secret phase that they have to burn through as well that they haven't seen yet. So who knows?
What's the 0% pull?
0% pull is a pull where they get it to sub 1%.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Which is like, a 0.5% pull or something like that. Like very, very low, any pull could kill it is basically the idea. But Liquid did trigger that mythic phase, so maybe that'll push it into tomorrow. There's one piece of storyline campaign questing, which comes out on Tuesday for like the final epilogue to all of the events that have sort of transpired. And otherwise we are sort of like done with this introductory experience to Midnight, and I don't know, we want to talk about it.
Yeah, just to kind of level set a little bit, our group has cleared all of the raids on normal. We will be doing our traditional raid review when we clear it on heroic. And we're gonna, I think, mostly avoid talking about the qua raid tonight. We're mostly going to talk about the other systems. Another thing we were talking a little bit about before the podcast is just there is a lot here, and there's a lot of like so much that like doing it all would be hard, and also doing it all would have like severe diminishing returns, right? Like you can I do so for me, my favorite things to do so far have been delves and prey hunts or whatever the formal name for it is called. And if I do if I do 4 tier 11 delves and 4 prey, 4 nightmare prey,
yeah,
I'm capped on hero crests, right? So like there's not a whole ton of point in doing any the other things. Like I have not done the what's it called? I haven't done the one in Elwyn Forest and the one in the Void. I have not done the kind of weekly events there. That's like the 4 faction gala, and the tower defense thing. I haven't even ever really done that once for real. I did it I did the do a world tour, do it once thing, but I was in PV, I was in war mode, and there was me, and that was it at the tower defense. You really can't do that solo, so I just kind of got the completion credit. I was like, I don't really care about this. Eventually, I'll get back around to it probably, but
I have been doing the party, but I love the party. The party is maybe my favorite of these world event sort of things. It does a couple of stupid things. Number one, it gives you it gives you rep with a bunch of factions that have already existed in WoW lore, which I love. I love this so much. I had this thing where we were talking about Midnight in the back half a couple of weeks ago, where I was sort of like, sometimes WoW events feel like I'm playing with Monopoly money, right? Like, and this is like Dragonflight very, very much hit this with me, where I'm meeting the fucking Centaur, and I know I'm just never going to talk to these fucking Centaur again, right? Or like Warlords of Draenor kind of had this effect, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting rep with the Frost Wolves and rep with the, I don't know, whatever. And it's like I'm just never going to interact with these sort of groups again. It's not going to matter. Um, but the advantage that that party has in Eversong Woods is that it is dealing with Blood Knights, Farstriders, Magisters, and Murder Row, like the residents of Murder Row. And like those feel real to me in a different way. Those feel like, oh, I get it. Like the Farstriders are like a real organization that have interacted with WoW Lord a bunch of times in the recent past. The Magisters is the same, is the same sort of thing. It also has like a role play component to it because like it's really easy to go, I'm a magister and I align with the magisters because I'm playing a blood elf mage, right? Who is like a magister, right? And I don't like the Farstriders because I'm a hoity-toity urban elf and I don't care about the woods, and so I'm gonna tank my rep with the Farstriders and prioritize my rep with the magisters. It's like all of that stuff I think is great. And then it does this thing which I think is honestly inspired, and I wish some of the other events did this. It just gives you a bunch of easy to complete weeklies that send you out into the zone so that you can do your prey hunts, which feels great. Like it gives you a reason to go out and, walk around the zone as the nightmare prey hunts are going and you're getting ambushed and you're fighting this thing or whatever and all of that. Where the other events really don't do a lot of that. The other events being the Stormarian Assault, which is this timed thing. I mostly think these timed things suck, frankly. I haven't remembered a good one maybe since the feast, and even the feast like wasn't even that, like the feast was good to do like a couple of times, but it was not good to do a lot of times, I guess I
Yeah.
would sort of say.
That is
Um
actually how I'm feeling about abundance right about now. Is like
oh
it
yeah.
it's like
Oh,
when I did it like a couple times, I was like, oh, this is neat. And then it's like I unlocked my tier 3 profession recipes. It's like, oh, I need 20 of these. Oh, I need to do 8 of these right now so I can refill my 8 because I'm already behind, right? Like after this podcast, I am probably going to go do my. That's the thing I feel like I have to do is go do abundance events so I can get my not, and you can't like I don't know. I'm
you
starting to
can't
get it.
bank it.
Yeah, well, and also I've started to kind of cheer us off in this direction, but I feel like I have to do the raid version because you need to get the full 900, abundance tokens every time because that's the only way. That's you get like one tool every what like two. You get like if you get 900 across
It's
8.
essentially 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like 2.5, but yeah, because you get
Yeah,
like
exactly.
uh,
I have been also doing abundance. I'm actually doing abundance on a number of characters, which is not great. Pretty big
yeah,
mistake, if I would say, if I do say so myself. Yesterday, I got to the point where I realized that all I need to do is fill up my first bar, that 150, and then turn all of that in, and you upgrade to the next thing. You get up to the 3,000 bar, and and then you just AFK for 2 minutes and wait for the timer to tick down because that's how you get your 900. So what I was doing is I was watching 30 Rock. I was doing my 1,530 seconds, and then I was spending 2.5 minutes looking at Strixhaven cards on EDH Rec and thinking about my new, Strixhaven magic cards. And I don't know I don't know if I want to like lean one way or the other. There's a part of me that wants to lean in a positive direction with abundance. The Steelman case for abundance is kind of like I like disassociative aspects to WoW, and I think just mindlessly farming is actually quite fun a lot of the time. And I want to do stuff while I am listening to audiobooks or listening to that was what I was doing during when we were watching the Jeff Kaplan interview. I was farming abundance across a bunch of different characters, right? And that was actually great because really what I was doing was I was watching the Jeff Kaplan interview and then hitting WASD a couple of times on my keyboard and just picking up these little Orbeez, and that was sort of it. But abundance pretty quickly reached this point, this like diminishing return, and I am now in this point of like, okay, it's 3 minutes per abundance. I get 8 abundance things per week. That is 24 minutes, but let's round up. It's about a half an hour. It probably takes about a half an hour to clear through all of my abundance. But I also need to like farm the shards in order to do it first. Um, so that adds another like 15 or like 20 minutes, and then once I start putting myself in that mindset, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to do this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this so much. And then the final piece of this is I'm not convinced that the reward is even worth it. I have it on a number of characters. I have it on Baron. You know, I have 2 epic tools on Baron so far. I think I have 2 epic tools across a couple of characters, and I'm working on a little bit on a bunch of different characters. And I have thought to myself, okay, the difference between the blue tool and the epic tool is like 1 or 2% of the secondary stats. So is it worth it for me to farm out abundance and get 2% of resourcefulness, or would and spend the 1600 abundance on that? Or would it be worth it for me to just buy the bags of the crafting material that the shards of Dun can also, or that the unalloyed abundance can get you, which I think is like 1200 per bag or whatever? And I was just sitting there and I was thinking, I was like obviously this is like a question I could truly math out, because you do this thing where you assume X amount of unalloyed whatever, and you do the, okay, well, 2%, 2% more finesse represents this much more on the lifetime of the expansion. Does that equal, more than whatever? You do all this sort of math, and I kind of do want to do that math to sort of see what it is, but I deeply have this feeling of like abundance is not fucking worth it, and it sucks.
Yeah, no, I feel like I will do it enough to get my tools and to get my the cosmetics out of it. But once I get the tools, I won't feel like I have to like slam it every week.
Yeah.
Right, like my first purple tool, unsurprising to anybody who knows me, is going to be a fishing rod, right? Partly because I don't have to worry about secondary stats on it, right? Like I don't have to get like have it unlocked. Like I have the way I'm, I can make my own fishing rod. I'm an engineer.
Yep.
And I don't have to worry about kind of like optimization around that stuff. But like, yeah, like to your point, I have been sitting there thinking, should I make myself a blue engineer's tool, or should I wait the 2.5 weeks and stick with my green one until I get enough abundance to ping my purple one? Is it worth kind of the intermediate step, especially because I am not like, I am just about to crest, I'm max out the engineer tool tree, and at that point I could probably I could concentration it into a tier 5 tool, but is it worth it type of deal? But Lou in the chat says in there, infinite wisdom made it harder to get shards. I honestly found the shard thing not so bad, because maybe that's just the way I happen to do it this week, but that's because I do the shards while I do my weekly fly around and mine deposits to get the artisan points for that, which I am also not the biggest fan of, but that is mindless enough for me that I don't care about it. I always do that in Soul Saga. Thank you.
Listen, we're talking abundance. Oh my god. Actually, we're talking abundance. Okay.
I always do my mining in the Amani Troll Zone, because I feel like kill the bear, get bonus perception. Like that's just like the best one to do, and I just pick up little boxes along the way, and that fills up my shards. And I haven't quite figured this out. Maybe like some of the boxes have profession increase widgets in them, and is that random, or are there like specific? Like sometimes I feel like there's specific ones.
Pretty clearly, because I am certain of this. It is, I guess, what would this be? Logarithmic. The first couple ones you do, over the course of the first couple of weeks, pop up very, very fast, right? But outside of that, it decreases pretty sharply. Basically, the way that it used to work in Dragonflight is there were 2 that came from treasures and 2 that came from mobs. So you used to have treasures that you would go get. You get 1 point each on all of the treasures. Then you would have 2 that would come from mobs. So like, let's say elementals, or for blacksmiths it was Jarden and elementals, I think that gave it. So you would go to 2 places and you would farm a bunch of elementals and you would farm a bunch of Jarden, and you would get these pickups. In World Within, they fused all of that into treasures, so you don't have to kill mobs anymore. You just have 2 treasures, and both treasures give you 2 points each, right? The first treasure always drops immediately, and the second treasure typically has like a 20% sort of like the first like 5 or so treasures you get. I actually think at the end of the expansion they did bump that up, so it was literally the first 2 treasures you open have blip 1, blip 2 kind of thing. In Midnight, what they have clearly done, and I have not graphed this out, but I'm sure that I could, is that when you have a character, you do your first 2 treasures on that character, like your first 2 weekly treasures, it's 1 and 2. Then it's like 50%. So it's like 1 and, 2, 3, 4 maybe if you have bad luck, right? Then it's like 25%. And now you're doing 8 treasures to get both of your things. And now I had to do like 30 or something to get them on Baron because I've been doing them every week on Baron, and I just had to loot so many of them. So I can clearly see what they're doing is they're doing this fall off thing. Like as you get these treasure points, your chance to pick up specifically the second one, it feels like the first one I always get basically right away, right? Though it is not 100% anymore. It is maybe like now at this point I would say maybe it's like 50% or something. I get in the first like 3. But then I'm just sitting there and I'm looting treasure box, trying to farm it. And I have seen this play out across a million alts, that I can just kind of like see the math behind this. Loot in the chat says it's catch up. It is actually not catch up. Every week you have both of those treasures available to you, and if you miss them in a week, you get a catch-up opportunity into your pool, which for crafting professions is handled through orders, public orders, and for gathering professions is handled through drops on the thing. There's like a special kind of drop that's a catch-up drop.
For mining things like cloudy quartz, because it happens after you get your 3 drop for the week. Which that feels like it's taking, maybe I'm imagining it, but it feels to me like that's taking longer each week too. It wouldn't surprise me if
I also agree with that. What I used to do in the War Within is I would bring up a new character every week and I would just sit and I would farm them to max, where you would go and you would do the weeklies, to get them maxed out for sort of the week. And then you could just farm that cloudy quartz. And it would take a couple of hours, right? Like it was not a quick farm in the way that the other ones sort of are. But this time it has been much, much, much worse. So I had multiple characters who were maxed out on mining in the War Within, just because you could just sit there and you could grind it and it was not that bad of a grind. Now it is a garbage grind. It is really, really tough, it feels like, to keep things kind of topped off. Like even on Baron, I don't think I am maxed on my mining, because I missed a week of farming the catch up. I guess this was PAX, so I don't know, whatever, maybe with more time. But I was just like, it really feels like it is harder to get that this time compared to last time.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say I am not the maddest about some of this, just because, like that feels less mandatory than than the abundant stuff does, right? Like it's like I do not have 7 alts trying to max out every tree across every profession.
Yeah, I know. This is me being weird.
But I think it is fine to make to essentially be diminishing returns, right?
Yeah.
And I'm less mad about the mat farm than I am about the abundance thing, just because the abundance thing, it feels like like a half hour that I have to dedicate, and there's no point in spreading it out, right? Like I'm just going
the thing that bothers me about abundance, I actually think I ultimately am going to come down kind of pro abundance, but there is a thing that bothers me about abundance, which is just that the epic items don't feel epic. One of the things they did in War Within was they had special reagent bags that keyed into the stuff that you were doing, right? So you could get the reagent bag for a blacksmith and it would give you a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit of extra stats when you do the blacksmithing thing, right? Or they had one for mining that was like your overload node is less, the cooldown is 2% shorter or something like that, right? And the thing about the epic tools that kind of bugs me is that there's nothing cool like that. I think that this would have been a good opportunity to make the sun forged blessing blacksmith hammer just have a cool little extra bonus effect that you don't have at the blue rank that makes me want to chase for it, right? 2% extra resourcefulness is just it doesn't feel epic to me. And I just think that you could have done this thing where, okay, we're gonna make epic versions of all of the items. Let's just like put a neat little cool thing in there that would just be a, you know, a thing that makes it feel, even if it's like a dumb, a little bit more fun to chase for, right? That's my, I think that's my big problem with abundance, is that the juice doesn't feel quite worth the squeeze. The other thing I was thinking is, I hate the weekly maximum cap. This is the part that I find the most frustrating. I kind of wish I could just farm out my weekly 8, but then turn them in at my own pace. So
Mm.
when I have 20 of them and I'm like, okay, this is enough to get me my thing, I sit down and I just grind abundance like a fucking madman, and I can just make a tool that day. But the idea that I have to clear through 8 shards of abundance before I can even pick up my next 8 shards really sucks.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I will also say on the other side, on the actual execution side of the abundance event, um, part of part of the reason I feel like frustrated by it is that like this is a very water finds a crack problem. Is like the right way to do this: get out of war mode, join the raid group, and then go into this event that is so many fucking dubers flying everywhere that the game is falling apart, right? Like, you know, I am running around and I'm not crisply picking up these fun little baubles. I am like, you know, walking around and like waiting 5 seconds for it to actually, you know, jump into the character, and then walking over and waiting another 10 seconds for it to empty out of the character. And, you know, I don't even get kind of like the self joy of like, oh, could I hit like, you know, 32,000 in abundance donated or whatever, right? Because I'm actually being stopped by the game falling apart underneath me.
Yeah, the first there was a part of me that wants to say that shit was ridiculous and so fun right at the beginning of the expansion. The first time I was like, wait, can you do this in a raid group? And I searched in the pre-made group finders and I got into a 40-man raid group when we were like crashing the server. You know what I mean? I was like, this is awesome. This is so much fun. And part of this was that like you were just hitting insane numbers. Like you could clearly tell that like you were tanking the server's ability to process that many little orbies, right? Like, and there was some amount of that was just like a stupid number go up kind of like fun, you know, fun to it. The problem is that they nerfed that so hard that I now have sort of set the bar up here, and they nerfed it so that you can only do it down here. You know what I mean? Like you will never get to that point where I farmed like, you know, 45 million abundance because those rats were giving insane abundance, and you were just doing the skinning thing at the mammoth where you're just going and then filling your whole thing and running back and forth. Like you just can't do that kind of broken ass shit anymore. And so all abundance forever afterwards just kind of like feels weak mode compared to, you know, compared to that.
I am enjoying the
yeah,
memes in the chat though.
worst.
Guys,
Yeah.
thanks for contributing.
I also will say for the record that I also think a huge part of it was, you know, glory be the richly abundant, right? Like the dun voice actor, this little fucking rat yelling at you and like talking over himself because you're triggering the thing so much is just so funny, and was such a good fucking cut.
I will agree with that. I will definitely agree with that. I have been trying to figure out like how to do like, you know, abundance, right? Like I'm abundancing type meme. Because it definitely like that is definitely the best part of it. I just, you know, I just wish the server could handle all of my abundance so that I could like, you know, feel like I, you know, even if I was just like playing against myself for like, you know, for like my own kind of amusement. But it feels like, you know, that I'm never actually going to like, I'm capped by like the server rate essentially, which is less fun.
Yeah, and like the fact that they have changed the mechanics of abundance like 800, you know, 800 times compared to what it originally was. The other world quests, so there, or not world quests, but like events. There's the Herondar thing where you do the weekly little, you get a little artifact and you learn a little bit lore about the Herondar. I just want to say that shit is great. I love it, but I hate it also. I think it sucks. Them locking behind the primo professional equipment behind abundance and then limiting how much unalloyed silver you can get per week is a real can't have your cake and eat it too situation. Yeah, I definitely think that's
what is unalloyed silver?
I'm sorry, it's unalloyed. What is it called? Abundance?
Is this like the little thing that you? Oh, okay, yeah, maybe.
whatever the 900
Okay,
currency
yeah,
is you
it's,
get at the end of abundance. Yeah, because the thing I think that they're saying is they're going, okay, in order to max out on your professions, you have to spend 10 weeks or whatever it's going to end up being, like farming this thing. Which I mean, I know that sucks, but I also sort of think that it is a fair ask for the game to time gate some shit like
sure.
this, right? Like it has only been out a month, and or whatever, 6 weeks is however long, and like this is an expansion that will last a year and a half, right? It's fair to kind of go, okay, it's going to take people 2 or 3 months to kind of like max out. I think that's I recognize from a top-down game design view that sort of makes sense. But like I said, I just think the primo professional equipment needs to be more primo in order to get me to care
So,
if you want me to do that kind of a farm.
jumping back, you said you don't like the Herondar one.
Oh yeah, so the Herondar one is like the Legends of the Herondar, which I think is awesome. I think it's so cool, and I hate it also. I think it's so dumb.
Why do you hate it?
Uh, I love the lore. I think it's so sweet. But there's two problems with it. Number one, it phases you. So it's sort of the opposite of the party. The thing that I love about the party is you are dealing with A, real things, and B, it sends you out into the zone where you do weekly quests. They're very easy to complete, but it's like gives you chuff for prey. It's sort of like, if prey is the, I don't know, the garlic powder in the mashed potatoes, the thing that is making the taste good, right? You also need the potato, which doesn't taste like anything, and Salthero's party is good potato, and Herondar's thing is bad potato. It sends you out into the world, but not in a way that interacts with prey at all, because it immediately phases you. And
Sure.
so you can't actually do your prey alongside this thing. And it is otherwise kind of short and weirdly like vehicle driven. And so it kind of feels like I'm playing through like a cute kind of coordinated 10-minute sort of campaign story quest where you're learning a little bit more about the Herondar, but like I'm kind of in a scenario or something. Like I'm not really doing a world basically. And then the second piece of this is that the Herondar are like the worst lore sort of faction to do this with in a way, because like they are, number one, sort of inscrutable. Number two, unconnected to anything that like we know or has kind of
This is
come
big who
before.
cares energy, right? Like,
Exactly, right. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the fucking centaur in Dragonflight, right? I maybe that they're planning more for the Herondar or whatever. Okay, I guess you can kind of do that, but like you can imagine a reverse version of this where like the Herondar has the party, and you're doing stuff with the Shulka and the elders or whatever. You're doing these Herondar sort of factions, and you're going and you're finding blood elf relics for magisters and far striders or whatever, and maybe this is stuff that keys into like previous blood elf lore. Yeah, that's awesome. You would get me in that immediately, because blood elves are tangible. Blood elves are real. Like they are a thing that I know will kind of carry. The spear of the root warden of gobbledygook. I just like I what is it? What does it sort of mean, right? And part of that is the inscrutability thing. The Herondar are in this interesting place where the lore actually feels incredibly important, right? Like the fact that there are these dark elf troll thing. I think they call wild elves, whatever you want to call them, that were lured to the center of the earth because there's your goddess in the cradle, and it's maybe as Shara, but maybe it's something else. But then they get there, the goddess is gone, maybe relocated by Titans or sort of whatever else. And it's just like not clear. So like because they're trying to like hide the lore behind this layer of you need to interpret it or whatever. I don't know. That's the part that makes me not care, basically.
I see that. So for me, that and the tavern thing where you go to the old raids and pick up bullshit. Those are like, I enjoy those, but that's because they're like 10 to 20 minute palate cleansers between me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and do my WoW chores. I gotta slam through 4 delves and 3 prey hunts. It's like when it's like, I'm tired of like ramming my head against these things. I'm going to take 10 minutes and do this low stakes, low effort thing that it's going to be easy to do and be at a different pace. That's how I view it, and I enjoy it from that perspective. But I certainly understand how you feel about that. It's like kind of like the it's the amuse bouche in between the other courses, which I wouldn't want to do. Like if I had to, this is the end of the expansion, and I'm trying to get some like achievement, and like I have to like do like 9 of these in a row or something, I'm gonna hate myself. But like one a week, and I will be happy between this and the tavern when like when it cycles out and the option is repeat it or skip it. I'm probably gonna be happy to skip it type of deal.
Yeah,
But,
I definitely feel that. I do kind of like that portion of it. And then the last one of these obviously is the Voidstorm one, which we kind of touched on. I have never done it to my sort of satisfaction, and I basically skip it every week. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back there because my rep with Voidstorm is not maxed, and I need to sort of max it. I don't really know what happened in Voidstorm. I like Voidstorm as a zone. I think it's actually a very sweet zone, and there's a lot of really cool kind of like lore in there that I'm really connected to, and all of the rest. But that tower defense thing sort of sucks. It is a huge grind. Um, and I don't enjoy it
yeah,
at all.
I wish I wish it had been an event in the PV. Like the PvP zone is something that I think is neat. This is like classic. This is classically for me. This is what's going to happen is
Mhm.
I'm going to say to myself, "This is neat. I'll come back to this later in the expansion to get really into it." And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to
Yeah.
do some of the weeklies and like pick up some of the quests. But I'm not a hardcore enough PvP player to like really utilize the zone to its fullest. But I do think it's like that is probably my favorite part of the Voidstorm is that PvP zone where you can just kind of like fuck around and do PvP stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else? What else do we want to talk about? You want to do dungeons? Did you do the new dungeons? Like you must have played through each of the dungeons once, I'm sure, right?
Not all of them yet. I've done some of them. I've done all the ones mandatory for the story, and I've done a couple others that had quests associated with it. But like I haven't done like Windrunner Spire. I just realized that I don't care about the dungeons like at all. Like maybe at some point someone will be like, "Do you want to do a mythic keystone?" And I'll be like, "Sure, why not?" But like I I I haven't done dungeons seriously since pre Dragonflight. Like
Yeah.
not even really in Shadowlands, but kind of right. Like uh
I think that there's a world where the dungeons this tier are incredibly tuned. Like undertuned. I don't want to say undertuned. Just like they are tuned low. Dungeons are sort of like easy. So this is actually a pretty good tier to like kind of get in and do the thing if you want to kind of get in and do the thing. Um as somebody who does a lot of dungeons, I guess just to like monologue for a minute. These dungeons actually feel incredibly good. I actually think that the last expansion that had what I would consider to kind of be like great, excellent dungeons was Shadowlands. I actually think that one of the reasons why I'm so up on BFA and Shadowlands is that I was doing a lot of dungeon content and dungeons were excellent in both of those expansions. I loved the BFA dungeons and I loved the Shadowlands dungeons. I don't think that there's a better set of dungeons actually than the Shadowlands dungeons. And then Shadowlands became Dragonflight, and the Dragonflight are maybe some of the worst dungeons in kind of modern WoW's sort of history. I have very poor feelings about the Dragonflight dungeons, uh and the War Within dungeons were kind of okay. The War Within dungeons, there are actually a number of them that I thought were great, and I'm going to be really excited. Like because there's this thing with Mythic Plus where dungeons will come back into the rotation, right? We will come back into the Mythic Plus rotation. I am excited for some War Within dungeons to come back into the Mythic Plus rotation. I am excited for basically any Shadowlands dungeon to re-enter the Mythic Plus rotation. Even the Shadowlands dungeons I liked the least, which were not Missive Pandaria, Mists of Tyrannosaith and Halls of Atonement, both came back and they were both bangers. They were both excellent, right? Dragonflight, almost all of them, I think I'm going to be annoyed when they enter the dungeon pool. Algathar Academy came back. Lou in the chat quotes Talon Toss because there's a bit in that dungeon where the person goes, "That's talent toss for you soft skins," which is, like just a line that we all quote to each other kind of like endlessly. Algathar is probably the best of the Dragonflight dungeons, outside of the Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon, which is excellent. The Mega Dungeon is so good, and the best season of the best season of Dragonflight is when the only Dragonflight dungeon was the Mega Dungeon. All of the other ones had rotated out. Um, but I think that most of the other Dragonflight dungeons, when they come back, I'm ugh, this one really? I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? The Midnight dungeons feel amazing. The Midnight dungeons feel like Shadowlands dungeon to me, in the sense of whenever I am looking at the boss sort of like mechanics, or I'm like entering a wing or something like that, it doesn't do this thing that I find kind of deeply annoying, which are like some like overly mechanized sort of boss fights. One of the things that happened in Dragonflight in particular, and a little bit also in the then, was you had these like dungeons with boss fights that felt so like so mechanically precise. So there's a blacksmith boss in whatever the it's whatever the Malfur no not Malfur Neltharis or whatever, like this Jarden dungeon. There's this blacksmith boss, and you have to be standing in like a very specific coordinated order, and there's just like a ton of damage going out. It's like that boss is like a really kind of bad over-designed boss, sort of, in my opinion. I'm never excited for that boss to come back. But when we were going through all of the Midnight dungeons, I was like, oh, I think all these bosses are fun, and I am going to be excited to see them to see them kind of come through. And that's really sort of interesting. We have not done a ton of them, so yeah, like this might, like I reserve the right to update this opinion over time, because like really we haven't really like pushed into the high keys, and this is where all of this stuff bears out, right? Like a cool dungeon can become quite brittle, where you have a cool dungeon, but then you get to high keys, and then that dungeon fucking sucks. It blows and is super unfun for reasons that don't actually make sense until you start doing it at like a plus 14 or something, and the scaling is terrible, and you want to kill yourself, right? So when we get to that point, I might come back and update this opinion. But for right now, man, like I feel like so many of these dungeons are all timers. Magister's Terrace, we did Magister's Terrace the other night, where we basically pulled the entire back half in like this one super long chain pull where we were coordinating a couple of interrupts, and it was just like I was like, this is peak. I love this. This is beautiful dungeon. You know what I mean? It's so cool and interesting. And I feel like I'm going to say in 3 years, oh, they're bringing Magister's Terrace back. This is my favorite dungeon, right? Or Murder Row is also like this. Murder Row has just like, it has a great vibe. It feels really, like interesting and fun. You're doing a cool thing kind of in lore of like, you're kind of cops breaking it down this fell smuggling ring, chasing a streets of through the streets of Silvermoon. And I feel like I'm probably going to get to Murder Row in 3 years and just be like, oh man, they're bringing back Murder Row. What an excellent dungeon. So, there are. We'll see where it goes. Yeah, Lou says in the chat, Veil is going to be that. That's a Blinding Veil is a dog shit dungeon. But
Yeah, I
we'll
could,
see.
I that's the icy one with the you have to like stage your way, run up a hill at one point. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Is that the Veil? No.
Blinding Veil is the light bloom one in Herondor.
Oh, never mind. That's a different
which
one
is
then.
just like the Everbloom, which I hate. Yeah. The one that you're referring to is Den of Nalarak, which I really like this dungeon. I think this one might end up on the annoying factor. This has the kind of over-designed boss fights that I was sort of talking about. That Ice Path is definitely a good example of it, but who knows? We'll see.
No, it's interesting because like I get all of that. I think for me, part of it is just like the need to do it with 4 other people that I have to like coordinate with is just like my coordinated WoW time is raid, and I like the Delves quite a bit, which is kind of my replacement for this. Like I really enjoy. I have been enjoying the kind of variety you get in the Delves. Like a lot of the Delves in the War Within felt kind of samey, which makes sense to me in the sense that like this is their first route with it. They're going to do kind of like their standard vision for the Delves. Then now they're starting to branch out, right? Like the fucking fight pit is like, you know, my assumption was like, oh, this is going to be the one that everybody farms because it's quick. It's not necessarily quicker than anything else, but I do enjoy that it's very different than any of the other delves, right? Like it's all fucking right there. Go and like,
And you can like gang pull the shit out of it.
yeah,
That's what I did in that one. I like pulled the whole room kind of accidentally, and I was like, oh god. But I was popped combustion, and I was just like flame striking everything down. And Valera was tank at the time, and she was not dying because these were like tier 4s or something. And I was like, oh, I actually think this delve is going to be kind of fun and awesome. I
yeah.
think I would agree with you. I think I do agree that the delves are much better. I like the War Within delves just kind of fine, but I never played them very hard. And part of this is a strategy thing, right? So one of the things that I'm kind of forcing on myself is I have one character for raid and mythics, and that's Baron, right? So I am tanking raid, tanking mythics on Baron, and I am not touching any other content on Baron, which is what I normally was doing. I was originally doing sort of like everything on him, but I found myself very frustrated constantly because I was sort of like, why am I doing these delves when I'm getting better gear out of mythics and I'm never going to select a thing out of my delve line? And it just felt like a waste of. It's just like it felt like a waste of time, basically. So what I did for this expansion was I split it up. I have Baron who's doing mythics and raid, and then I have Sarath and my Blood Elf Fire Mage, who is doing world content and delves, basically. And that has actually been pretty magical because I'm actually using delves to gear this character, and like at the end of any individual delve, I can pull a piece of gear and go, oh my god, what a great upgrade, kind of thing. Which is a lot of fun. Even though doing delves as Fire Mage, especially Sun Fury Fire Mage, is maybe the stupidest fucking thing in the world. I don't understand how I was able to get to 11 so fast. Um,
I think that's, I think just kind of how delves are tuned, right?
yeah.
Like I thought it was going to take me a minute to get to 11, and I just like walked up the fucking step path, and like it was a little tough for the first couple, but it's not free, but it is like not hard at this point to do 11s.
There was a while where I had to actually employ some really tricky mechanics, so I was doing stuff, especially on the Nemesis packs. There was a while where I was polymorphing one of the mobs on the Nemesis packs to cut them down to 2 instead of 3, and then only pulling those 2 at a time, which actually was like, this is kind of awesome. This actually feels like very classic, WoW, where you have to, kite somebody into a frost trap, you have to polymorph stuff, you have to hibernate things or whatever. That felt great, but I am now at a point where I don't need to care about any of that stuff anymore. And I can basically just kind of hard clear on tier 11 without any real difficulty, unless like something crazy happens, like you butt pull too many elites or something like that.
Yeah.
Part of it for me was I swapped Alira off of tank and 2 heals, which was a piece of advice I got from a number of locations. I actually think both Lou and Low Kicks in the chat, you guys both mentioned it. Sarian mentioned it. Just like a ton of people. I was using Valera as tank at first. And a bunch of people were like, just set her to heals and she will keep you mainly topped up and you should be fine. And that was a pretty big sort of win. So.
Yeah, I always have the delve companion on heals. So it's just like the only time I ever die in delves is on like, like you said, like an oversized pull, or like, some weird combination of factors from like the only time I ever have like trouble sometimes is like like you said, like those 3 elite packs, like the wolfy looking ones, or like the where they just like kind of stack damage in a way that I'm not like paying attention enough to deal with. Or like the only other time I die is like on the boss when they have like a one hit kill you mechanic, and I am trying to like, shave time too aggressively and get hit by the the one hit kill mechanic, and that's basically it.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I kind of think that they are, I kind of think that they are undertuned. That's definitely the whole like sub theme of this patch, is that lots of stuff is kind of undertuned. Most people think that this is because of getting rid of the add-ons, right? They got rid of add-ons. And so the idea is we are going to undertune the raid, undertune the dungeons, undertune the delves, so that nobody can do this thing where they complain, they go, WoW is too hard without weak auras, basically. Which I think is, kind of, it's kind of fair enough, right? But I definitely do wish that there was a while where in the War Within, I was farming tier 8 delves because they were the ones that got you like the max, sort of like vault reward. And also I wasn't I was dying in tier 9, 10, 11, and tier 8 was my comfortable sort of farm zone, right? Which is sort of like the Diablo. You and I have talked about this Diablo before, right? You don't do the hardest content, you do the hardest farmable content, right? And I feel like what has happened in Midnight is that is just tier 11s, right? It is not going to get any harder
Yeah,
from here.
I will say
But,
that
you know,
I feel like that was also true in the War Within. Like I don't think delves were ever that hard, and like maybe I'm too far away from patch 1 of the War Within where this was ever really an issue. Like the problem is going to be is whenever when season 2 starts, I'm going to be in season 1 heroic gear, and I'm already going to be like so far up the power chain that it's not going to matter. But even I even season 1, I found it relatively easy to get up to high tiers in the War Within. Um, and I'm
yeah, I didn't do much delves in season 2 or season 3 of War Within, so I am only thinking really of season 1, which I think is probably what it kind of comes down to.
I
And
am
also they were new at the time, right? Like
yeah.
after a year, a year and a half of doing these a whole bunch, you just get a lot of practice and seconds, like subliminal skills, all that kind of stuff.
I am excited for excited because like once you do a certain number of delves, the gilded chest will drop mythic crests, so I will be able to get like mythic crested items this expansion, which is not a thing. I topped out at hero gear, and now I top out slightly higher, which will be nice. I'll have things to do like season 3 of the War Within. I hit my end state pretty quickly, and I was mog hunting maybe, right? Like um which was nice because I could put the game on the back burner and not feel bad about it. But I feel like I've got a little bit more to drive for. I don't. How do you feel about your class at this point? Because I still haven't fully adjusted to Windwalker Monk in under the new talents. I'm not at my peak performance. That I'm still. It's fun because like I see room for improvement, right? Like, and I can work on things to make it better. My muscle memory isn't quite right because I'm still in the muscle memory from like last expansion. But on the same time, it feels bad to not be top DPS in the raid anymore. So
Yeah, my class design. Okay. I'm in a weird place when it comes to class design. So on Warrior, which is the class that I've played for most of WoW's lifetime, right? I've been a Warrior main for just a bazillion fucking years. Warrior got the least amount of changes of any of the classes, basically. I secretly think obviously this is not me leaking inside information. I know some people who work at Blizzard. It's not like anybody's ever told me. I secretly think that they kind of tuned to Warrior. I have sort of always suspected this. I think if I were to like perform a, not an RCT, but like a, like a, what am I thinking? A regression analysis. And I were to go all the way back, to, I don't know, whatever, WAD, Mists of Pandaria, maybe. I could probably prove that Warrior has gotten the fewest number of changes compared to any other just any other class, right? There are just not a ton of reworks that go into Warrior, where certain classes get reworks kind of like all the time. And there's just not a lot of tuning to Warrior all that often. It tends to just kind of stay it tends to kind of just stay the same, right? One of the things that was really funny about Warrior then is towns were changing all the time, all this stuff. Those Warrior hero towns stayed basically the same the entire expansion, right? They tinkered with it a little bit, right? But basically they were good. The Warrior and in Dragonflight this was also true. In Dragonflight everybody said the talent trees were ass except for Warrior. Warrior gets a really good talent tree or whatever. And this is just kind of my thing. I just think that they tuned to Warrior is sort of what it comes down to.
yeah, there's a meme that's like new game comes out, 40 races, 72 classes, human, male, fighter, go, right? Like it's I think that's probably true for WoW too. I'm sure that like the most commonly played combination is human warrior, right? And so it probably makes sense to tune to Warrior, right? Like
it is, yeah. It is a weird thing, and part of it is also just that like Warrior is a pretty straightforward class. There's a lot of stuff that you can do between Fury, Fury arms and Prot or whatever. And anyway, I have detected essentially no difference between Warrior in War Within and Warrior Prot Warrior specifically, in War Within and Prot Warrior in Midnight. My understanding, people have complained quite a lot about arms. There's a whole thing about slam and arms was really bad and all of this other kind of stuff, and they did arms a little bit in the talent tree. I haven't played much arms this expansion. I played a tiny little bit of it when the class changes went out, and it was fucking sweet. It was really awesome. The new like talents or whatever you get from arms. I was like, oh boy, I really could see myself play a whole patch as arms warrior, because holy fuck, they did this thing that is just the coolest. So arms is all about, you have these windows with Colossus Smash. So you Colossus Smash, you deal a bunch of damage to everybody basically. They did this thing where they said, okay, when you Colossus Smash, your cleave has no cooldown for the first 3 cleaves. So basically, like your big AoE nuke button, you can just spam that thing. And it is so fun to go Colossus Smash, cleave, 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 right? Like that was so fucking fun. But anyway, besides that, I haven't really detected any other kind of like major changes to the class or anything kind of along those sorts of lines. And I haven't even touched Fury for the purposes of this. I think Fury also got basically 0 change. So on the Warrior front, it doesn't feel different at all. Prot is literally almost the exact same. There's like a couple of tiny kind of tuning numbers changes, right? But that's basically it. And then arms and fury, I haven't touched it all that much. I haven't really seen the difference, but my sense is the difference is not that much. Fire Mage is my other kind of main here, which is obviously Sarathan doing the world content. This was a class that I picked up for the purposes of Midnight. I was like, I am going to do Midnight, the Blood Elf expansion, as a Blood Elf Fire Mage, spec'd into Sun Fury, which is the Blood Elf Fire Mage hero talents that's based on Kael'thas Sunstrider, right? Where you summon a Phoenix and you're doing all this other sort of stuff. And that was like an RP decision. This was like I want to play the Blood Elf expansion as a Blood Elf doing Blood Elf things, right? And I leveled the character through Legion Remix. So Legion Remix, I don't think gave me a very good understanding of what the fucking Fire Mage rotation is going to be like, because you get to a bazillion % haste, 100% crit, like all of those kinds of things. Like I wasn't actually interacting with the real version of the class all that much. But they did rework it between the War Within and Midnight, and the rework kind of fucking sucks, to be honest with you. They pruned pretty hard, and they made it harder to get your hot streak, sort of things. I said to my friends, I said, we were all talking about class changes, and somebody was like, what do you think of Fire Mage? I think it was Dave. Dave was like, what do you think of Fire Mage? And I said, oh, it fucking sucks. It's kind of awful. I kind of hate it. And he was like, oh, so do you think you're gonna change around? People seem to like the frost change. I was like, no, I'm doing a Fire Mage. This is the whole point. It's the RP. I'm doing a Blood Elf Fire Mage with the Sun. I'm not gonna change that around now. Like I'm committed kind of thing. I will say that it got better with Apex Talents. Apex Talents really solved Fire Mage for me, and now I think Fire Mage is fine. It's okay. It's whatever. The Apex Talents did this thing where they made it so that you could keep combustion up for much longer, which is really all you want when you're playing Fire Mage. Combustion gives you 100% crit. It's like your big cooldown. It gives you 100% crit. It's on a 60-second, cooldown sort of thing. And it puts you in this place where you're going Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Pyroblast, Fire Blast. You're bouncing back and forth. You're just machine gunning your most powerful sort of spender spell. It's like it makes the whole class fun, right? And the Apex Talents unlocked that, which is great. That's sort of excellent. And then I have played a bunch of the other classes in like stuff. They all feel incredibly different to what I got in War Within. I haven't touched Monk, I guess, but I did level a Windwalker Monk in War Within, so I have no idea how different that is. But Hunter, I have 3 different Hunters. All of them feel insane compared to what they used to be. Demonology Warlock is kind of, but it's sort of streamlined. I actually like the way that they streamlined Demonology. I kind of think I could like it. Frost Mage, completely different. I sort of hate Frost Mage right now, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of glad I did not do the thing that Dave recommended where I swapped to Frost. But it feels like everything but Warrior got huge sweeping changes, basically. And if Fire Mage is any indication, those indications those changes end you in a pretty mid place overall.
So Lou in the chat says Monk doesn't feel too different to me. The thing is it's not that different, but it's different enough that my muscle memory is wrong, right? Like, which is the problem, right? I have to
Yeah.
adjust. Like, it is 80 to 85%, I think, the same, but like the priority is slightly different. The other part of this is that like Peak of Serenity, and I love those guys, and I think I give them $1 or two every month because they that is how you play, at least the way I play, or the way I feel like most people play their classes, they go look up like what the rotation is somewhere, and that's Peak of Serenity for monks. And they say that Conduit of Celestials is competitive with Shadowpan, and when I sim it, it's 10% lower, and that is just like too much for me to like that. That's a lot. Um,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Especially now that the competition is so fierce in Raid.
yeah, well, part of it is I'm sure that I'm not there. Part of it is I haven't enchanted gear yet, right? I typically wait until I'm like close to end state for gear to dump a bunny into enchants. Yeah, Fist of Fury is up so often. Yeah, they got rid of Storm, Earth, and Fire, which is a thing that bothers me. I get it. It never worked right. Like the meme was like it's like the Agent Smith meme, right? Like you squash one bug and one Storm, Earth and Fire bug, and 7 more pop up. Um, yeah, and not clipping Fist of Fury was always a thing. Um, I really liked Conduit of the Celestials. I still do, right? Like I run Conduit of the Celestials in Delves because I'm not concerned about parsing in my delves.
Yeah.
But it is a much more like there are many more things to mess up with Conduit of the Celestials. So you're basically kind of trying to stack uh I forget what it's called, like the Heart of the Jade Serpent. I forget what the full name of the buff is, but basically it speeds up your Fist of Fury, and so you always want them. You only want to do one of the abilities that will do that when you can fire off a fists, and basically you can get caught trying to wait too long or like not having enough chi to like actually fire off the Fist of Fury within the window, and that's like it's an easy enough thing to mess up that it feels bad. But even though it's my preferred way to play, and so Shadowpan feels a little bit slower. It doesn't feel as I don't I'm not used to it as much, and there are a couple of nuances that I need to really wrap my head around and commit to memory before before I really get it down. But it's I'm not having fun with it. I'm just don't feel like I'm like it'd be one thing if I was like hitting my parses as well as I was in the War Within, even if I was lower on the raid chart. But I'm also not hitting my parses right. Um, uh, uh, yeah, in the chat, Safety Cat says, I haven't tried MOH yet, but I do like Zenith over Storm, Earth, and Fire. I think Zenith is more reliable. I just kind of like the theming of Storm, Earth, and Fire better. And that's a personal thing. I never use Serenity. I always use Storm, Earth, and Fire. But I am looking forward to putting more effort into. I do enjoy it that I have something something to strive for. Which is a thing that I feel like I was missing for. I am a little salty that that Conduit is simming so much lower than Shadowpan at the moment, but that is what it is. And I don't really like. I can't. Rather, if I want to switch specs, I have to do a different role, which I keep saying I'm going to learn Brewmaster every expansion, and then I never do, or Fist Weaving or something.
I think I could see a version of things where you do, you could maybe do the split thing that I'm doing with like Sarath and Baron, where like you have your raid character, like Billabong is a raid character and something else is like a world content character. But I feel like there's probably not a world where it feels like Billabong is going to swap roles, right?
No, I mean, and the problem is like my other character is Triage or Destroyer in Marathon, right? Like it is not a second character.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, I am imagining that the class changes are kind of a miss. I have heard lots of people complain about them, but I do think that they're important. I don't know. I have this other thing about Apex talents. I was talking to Sarian about these, where Sarian was talking about how he really hates his Apex talent because it doesn't meaningfully affect his rotation at all. And I do get that, but I also think that it is complicated. And I have only seen a couple of different Apex talents, and I don't know how much I like or dislike them. I think I'm overall kind of a miss on Apex talents in the sense of like I I don't see the point in adding them. I think maybe in like 3 expansions, maybe you do a thing where you just introduce a new tier, a new tree of Apex talents, and you maybe can kind of like encourage different sort of builds each tier. And like the last Titan introduces a set of Apex talents, and whatever's after the last Titan introduces a set of Apex talents, like those kinds of things. Like maybe, but in general, I kind of feel like my Apex talents is I either dump everything into them or I avoid it completely, and that's kind of it. On Prot, the Apex talent basically says after you thunderclap, try and shield slam because it gives your next shield slam this kind of cone sort of effect, and that's fun. I guess it's fine. I like seeing my little like cone kind of thing, and it is something I kind of lightly track, but it doesn't feel as good as Hero Towns did. Like Hero Towns like immediately got me to rethink my class, and like playing Mountain Thane where you're constantly like lightning is coming down. And you're doing stuff, and Avatar and Thunderclap are very buff compared to Colossus, which gives you this whole new button, and that button is this huge, like melee DPS boom big hit every 30 seconds or so. It's like I don't know, Apex talents compared to that just were like kind of do
Yeah,
nothing for me.
I definitely feel that. They just feel kind of like whatever, right? Like they're there. I use them because what else am I gonna do, right? I like
Yeah.
hero talents a lot more. I agree with you there. Um, the other thing I was gonna say is, at least about Monk is that the trimming meant that a lot of things got put like either together or like kind of on the same button, right? Like Whirling Dragon Punch and Fist of the Windlord, which I forget what it's called now. Um,
Yeah.
they're like it's one or the other now, which I don't like. I like having both of them. Not that it's the end of the world, just kind of like, oh, and then like Phalanx Stomp, which is Jade Fire Stomp now, is like is a talent that puts it on the end of Fist of Fury and on Zenith proc, or on Zenith activation, which is again fine, but I miss having it as a button, right? Like, it is like that. The smush feels less good to me, but that's the way it goes, I suppose.
Yeah. The last piece I was thinking about is about sort of like story stuff. Do you have deep opinions on the story so far of Midnight?
Uh,
Especially now that we have seen the end raid cinematics.
sure. Spoilers, I guess, for
Yeah, at this point we would consider this to be spoiler territory for we will talk about the raids themselves once we get to AOTC. So we will do our, boss by boss review that we do every tier once we hit AOTC. So we will skip the raids in terms of, actual fight content. Though I guess do you have an overall do you have like a one sentence of the raids? Do you like the raids?
uh I don't want to. I don't have a strong opinion, and part of
Heroic is
that
going to make the difference.
heroic's gonna make the difference because normal is easy, right? Like
Yeah, that's true.
because there's so many alternate gearing paths, and our group has been going into raids geared like normal's too easy to really
Yep.
evaluate. I think um that's my opinion at least. So I'm gonna hold
Okay.
until we're done with heroic.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same spot. I like that they're broken up. This is my big thing. I love this innovation of having 3 separate raids in the 2 weeks, and they kind of one follows the other in sort of the story and all of that kind of stuff. I actually think that's great. I'm all about it. The one thing I wish is that the Dream Rift raid like mattered. Like I thought that it would be like I don't know. Hypothetically, it would have been better if you had all 3 of the raids key into the story, at least in different sort of places. Or like maybe that third Dream Rift raid kind of acts as a I don't know, I just kind of hate Harry is really what I to. But I love sort of that structure, but I don't really know what the good bosses and the bad bosses are gonna be without playing it on sort of heroic. That said, we can't talk about the story stuff. So, there's the Void Spire, which kind of leads into the March of Quel'Thanas. I actually quite like the story. I think I really like the story outside of the fact that I just sort of dislike like the characters that we're following. I have in the same way that I think of like the Herondar thing as kind of like playing with Monopoly money. Like it doesn't count. It's sort of not real. That's sort of how I feel about most of these characters. Which was a feeling that I had. I've actually had this since Shadowlands, basically. In Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, I felt like we were playing with our A tier, right? This was Superman, this was the Justice League, right? These were the money makers. This was the Avengers. This is Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man kind of stuff. What I feel like we have been doing since Dragonflight is playing with like the C list, right? Where it's like Raytheon and Alex Raza, and I'm just like, this is like telling me that Squirrel Girl is on the Avengers, or that the Avengers lineup is like, I don't know, man, Luke Cage, Misty Knight, Daredevil. Daredevil is even too A-list for this. Do you know what I mean? Just like these C-list characters. This is how I feel about Terralion, Erator, and Illyria. And that's really dragging the stuff down, and it's kind of what the raid is all about. But at the end of the Void Spire raid, Illyria maybe dies, and I think that would be so great.
She is going to appear out of a submarine in in Midnight and Furious 10, right? Like she is not dead.
Sub references are just for me, okay, Manga.
No,
that's actually pretty fun.
I mean, it's great. Like if it's standard. If we don't see her die, she's not dead. That is my.
I know. I have this fantasy. I have this fucked up, filthy fantasy that they are going to put these lame characters aside, and the rest of the expansion is going to be focused on Lorthamar Theron, and this is going to be a 10 out of 10 expansion, right? I know that that's not going to happen. I know that we're going to still be in this fucking like Illyria, Erator, Terralion hellhole for the next 2 fucking patches. Kill me. But like, all I want is for Lorthamar to be the main character expansion. I think that if you replaced everything that's happening with Erator, and to be clear, I actually like that stuff on its own merits. I think that stuff is fine. It's just, he's a C-list character. He is not a main character, right? You are not going to convince me that Anduin Wrynn or Sylvanas Windrunner are on the same, playing field as Erator. I just don't care about Erator. And anyway, so I have this hope that Illyria is dead. Terralion is going to be lost for the next 2 or 3 patches. Erator is going to take a back seat because he had his big moment here, and we are from now on we're going to focus on just the I don't want to say the characters who matter because it's fucked up, but frankly, the characters who matter. And that character is Lorthamar Theron, who has been in the game for forever and is a cool, interesting guy who we have done cool, interesting stuff with, and he has a personality and a great voice actor. It's just like, please God, make him do the stuff. God damn it. You know what I mean? Even Lady Liadrin, who is also sort of a character that I think of as kind of C-list or whatever, I actually think that her VO is great. Her stuff that happened in Zulaban was excellent. Zulaban was the best of the zones, right? Like, if you told me that we're putting all this Windrunner bullshit aside and we're going to focus on Lorthamar and Liadrin, I would be 10 out of 10. No notes, great. But I do recognize that Illyria is not fucking dead, and this is all cope. Like, yeah.
I have said my piece about how or previously about how I am mixed about how they're treating like this light madness thing. It's like, oh, this unique kind of like Void Lord character is dead now because the light's actually secretly not the best guys, right? Like I'm very subvert. Your expectations were subverted. Red Letter Media voice, right? Like I am going to double down. I think Terralion's going to come back in the story when he steps over Erator's broken body and picks up his old shield and defends him or something. Like, I think that's going to happen. So I did the kind of in between the raid story quest this morning, where you go assemble all the elves, right?
Yep.
And there's this moment where you go get the high elves, right? And Verisa, when Verisa kind of walks up to the gate. And I forget what the character's name is, but it's one of the people from Silver Moon is like, one Windrunner sister has faced justice. Verisa has to too, or something like that. I'm like,
that guy's name is Aethys Sunreaver, and he is awesome, and I love him, and I'm so mad he's not like part of it. Anyway, keep going.
I was like, that's a pretty good point, right? Like, like what the Windrunners, we're kind of 0 for 3 on Windrunners at this point, right? Like,
yeah.
So that's I appreciate your perspective on Illyria as kind of like the least bad of the sisters at this point, right? Like, um, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. I know several stands of several characters. I am one of them, right? Like I'm a Varian Rin stan, right? Like anything that Varian Rin was involved in, I was really keyed in because I just loved that character. Super fun and interesting. And he, I part of what I liked about Varian is that like he was annoying is the word that's in my head, but it's kind of the wrong. It's just like he causes conflict. You know what I mean? He is the kind of guy to like point at Garrosh Hellstream and go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Which is like fun character work. That stuff is great. And we've talked a little bit about like this homogenization, the therapy speak that kind of breaks into, sort of the language and the writing. And you're not really allowed to have characters who kind of like make dumb decisions and kind of cause problems, like these interpersonal problems. And I actually think that there is a real effort in Midnight to kind of correct upon that, which actually feels good. I think Midnight is a better, just on that level, is better than certainly Dragonflight, which was the
Sure.
worst at this, and certainly The War Within, though The War Within got to do some other fun stuff that is maybe going to make it. There's a real version of things where The War Within ends up being a better story than Midnight, depending on how it plays out. Because like The War Within, you got to do all that stuff with Gallywix, which was a lot of fun. Or whatever else. Plus, you got to do Good Guys Alatath and Koresh was so great. Anyway, I just don't think there are any Illyria stands. There's nobody out there who stands Illyria in the same way that I stand Varian, or the way that people stand Sylvanas is a clear one, right?
Sure.
There's just like there are a lot of those, right? Or Anduin is another clear one. There are a lot of them. The people who just like really care about these individual important characters, and so I don't know. I hope she's dead.
Yeah. I mean, there's maybe this might be like me wanting like things to be different than they are, and maybe that's wrong. But like, there's a part of me that wanted the answer to Sunreaver being like, no, Verisa, was for us to be like, you know what, you're right. I won't come in. Let the rest of the High Elves enter, right? I will stay exiled, right? Like, I thought that would have been sweet, but that obviously didn't happen, right? It's like, okay, you gave us the stuff. We're good for now, right? Like,
the other thing about that was interesting is that the Sunreavers don't show up as part of like the big, the Sunreavers are like their own faction. They're kind of the opposite of the Silver Covenant, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that they are, but like they're also folded into they're sort of like folded into the Blood Elves. I love the Sunreavers. I think the Sunreavers are sweet. They are just like really cool, interesting sort of. There were a couple of notable missing pieces. The other one that I was thinking of, Scryers from Burning Crusade. Do you remember the Scryers?
Yeah.
That was the whole Blood Elf faction, of like they were all Kael'thas's friends, but whoever I can't remember the lead guy's name. It's like Vorthal, I think is his name. He has like a vision when he enters Shattrath. He and a bunch of the Blood Elves sort of leave. I was hoping that we would do a thing to go recruit the Scryers. And the other one was the Dark Rangers, which felt so obvious to me because we've actually done a lot of work to like establish the Dark Rangers in the lore, in Dragonflight, in the aftermath of Shadowlands kind of stuff. And there was no kind of moment of outreach where you have to go talk to these Dark Rangers and recruit them into the sort of defensive Silvermoon. I quite liked Lou is gonna hate me for saying this. I quite liked the sort of thematics of this. I liked going to Belemeth and recruiting the Night Elves, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it. It's kind of a thing where you just kind of have to like. It's a vibes thing, right? It makes sense based on vibes, not based on actual lore. Like, oh yeah, we're uniting all of the elves. Sure, I guess. The Night Elves are included in that. But like the connection between Verisa Windrunner and Silvermoon, or Thalisra, the stuff you're doing with the Nightborn and Silvermoon, is just so much stronger than the Night Elves. If you actually know the lore, it's sort of ridiculous. But like, in the questing, you just kind of ignore that.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, whatever.
Like,
they're all elves.
I'll take it on face value that it's like, I don't know. If I wanted to be a real asshole about it, I could be like, I guess it's it's important to be pointy-eared than anything else. But it's like, why not? Like, they're part of the Horde. Why not go to fucking like the orcs or something, right? Like
yeah.
But I also found myself annoyed going to the Night Elves and listening to Maiev just like bitch the entire time that you're standing there. It's just like, oh, the Blood Elves fucked up again. Big surprise, right? Like,
we have been arguing about this in like the lore channel for like lore stuff. Because I also hate the way that Maiev. I'm sorry, Lou. I know Maiev speaks for you, but I just think that her argument is bad on his face, right? Because she's making this argument that like, you guys really ought to think about turning the Sunwell off because the Sunwell has attracted 3 different invasions. The Burning Crusade was about the Sunwell with Kil'jaeden. They also used it for Kel'Thuzad and Archimonde. And then this is sort of like the 3rd time. But I'm just like, this is the most victim blaming bullshit I've ever heard in my fucking life. You know what I mean? It's just you going, well, she really deserved it. What was the Sunwell dressed
if
like
they had
that
just
night? You know what I mean?
chopped down Teldrassil themselves, Sylvanas wouldn't have had to burn it, right? Like,
yeah, it's like this is exactly where it's like saying, you really invited a problem in Orgrimmar by gathering all of those things together. And this is why there's the Siege of Orgrimmar and the Battle of Orgrimmar at the end of BFA. It's like, that's not Orgrimmar's fault, you idiot. You know what I mean? It is like the fault of the people who are doing sort of like the attack. That's kind of how about kind of the Maiev thing.
I will say, like, this is less for me about the substance of Maev's argument and more about her just kind of like standing there bitching while you're running around activating the ancients, right? Like,
yeah.
And I do think I am interested in the story point where whoever the leader of the Night Elves is at this point is like, you should consider turning off the Sunwell, and he's like, I'll think about it, right? Like, I do think that's interesting, and I could see a bunch of ways they go with that, and I am interested to see it go. It could go poorly, right? I think the worst version of this is like some like ham-fisted allegory about nuclear disarmament or something, right? Like,
yeah, the weird part is that like the elves have always needed the Sunwell, but like that is always a complicated sort of thing. Like, no one has ever like adequately explained to me the mechanics by which elves draw their magical power from the Sunwell such that they don't become wretched. I understand that if they don't have that power, they wither and they become these things, and it's like the withered in Suramar and all the rest of that kind of thing. But like, I don't know, that whole thing never really made sense to me kind of in like the first place. It's a little too sort of like high concept. And I do want to be clear, by the way, I am shitting on Maev's argument, but like I said before, I actually like that we went and recruited the Night Elves, even though it doesn't make any sense in the lore, simply because having that level of tension is great. This is what I liked about it, right? I like that there is a group here who is a little like, come on, you guys, you know what I mean? And it is, in my mind, sort of a good kind of addition. It's the friction that is sort of missing on like the Horde Council, where I talk about the Horde Council is just, they're all good guys, you know what I mean? Nobody's ever gonna fight with one another because there's nobody who's like an asshole who wants to do things the bad way or whatever. This was them putting together a group of people who actually do have quite a lot of friction. There's the friction with the Sun Reavers, even though the Sun Reavers don't show up, but it doesn't make any sense why they're not there because they had all that, but whatever. And then there was nothing with the Night Elves. And I was also, this is part of why I wanted the Dark Rangers there, because I was like, then you have this thing where the Dark Rangers, who are all dead Blood Elves, right? They're dead Blood and Night Elves. They can now come together and be a part of a coalition, with Night Elves who fucking hate that. It's like that's the part that I think is sort of missing, basically.
Yeah, I did enjoy that the Herondar and the Zulamani showed up at the last minute to just kind of be like, hey, so I'm like, oh, we've talked about this. The trolls are technically upstream of elves. It's like, that's like,
Yep.
and we suspect the Herondar are like, proto trolls, right? Like that's a thing, right? Like, as apparently the only Darkspear that attended, the it's like, we got all the representation, right? Like,
honestly, the funny thing about that, I thought that moment was really hacky until I heard Zuljara's voice line where she was like, hey, you guys are raiding Silvermoon and you didn't invite us. I was like, yes, that's great. Okay, this is awesome. This is sort of a party. Yeah. And then there's there was the cutscene at the end of the March of Quel'Danas raid where Um, I'm gonna say I'm a little baffled by all of this. This is the part that is so strange to me. They made that cutscene all about Sylvanas, who shows up out of nowhere,
Well,
doesn't do.
she was in. She had that quest line, right? Like I
Yeah,
did the quest line where Eritor goes to the maw. And it's
me
like
too. Yeah.
Sylvanas, right? Like
That quest line, by the way, is great. So that quest line is excellent, right? She's using her harp to sort of do the souls. She's very sort of like penitent and all of the rest of that, which I think was really, sort of really the stuff with the harp, I think, was like actually transcendent kind of character work because it keys into both her brother Lyrath, which underlies all this stuff that's going on with her and Anduin, right? Like Anduin and Lyrath have a lot of parallels, and obviously her and Anduin are kind of like the main, the main kind of clashing forces in sort of Shadowlands. And it also calls all the way back to the Lament of the Highborn, which is the song that she sings in the original World of Warcraft. Like in World of Warcraft Classic, you can find her locket, and you give it to her, and there's this kind of in-game cutscene thing that plays where she sings this song, the Lament of the Highborn. It's very famous, or like a bunch of stuff comes out of that. So it's like that stuff I thought was all great. The fact that she shows up at the end of the Lura fight scene, and Xalatath is, I guess, going to kill Eritor and Varisa, but then Sylvanas doesn't hurt Xalatath. She just kind of hits one of her like void blooples with her arrow, and I'm like, hit her in her head. You know what I mean? Xalatath kind of dodges. That's low. And then she and Xalatath have like a little 1v, kind of tete-a-tete, and then Xalatath sort of like retreats. I don't know what I think about all this. I kind of hate all of it, to be honest with you. I sort of hate this cutscene, if I'm sort of real. Mostly because it comes out of fucking nowhere, like left field, and she doesn't even stick around. I think I would have been okay with this cutscene if now, okay, Sylvanas is back, and she is the bridge that we're getting to 10.1 or whatever it is, 13.1, whatever the 12.1, I guess. But she shows up, she shoots this arrow, she hugs Varisa, and then she's like, things are not quite what they seem, and then pieces out, and it's like, what? Where does that leave us? What are we doing? What's next? So anyway, that cutscene, I don't know. Do you have feelings? Do you care?
I mean, I do think it was. I think it was fairly telegraphed, right? Like, again, I did this out of order, but I did this intercalary thing, and fucking Eritor says, "I wish Auntie Sylvanas were here," right? Like, and so
that's true. That is true. Yeah.
I will agree with you that like kind of the mechanics of this are kind of was like Sylvanas hiding behind a tree, waiting for her opportunity to like step in and like save the, like it's like, oh, I'm here. And I get what you're saying. I just figured that they were going to do something like this, right? That Sylvanas was going to appear at some point and do something.
I actually think that she is going to be kind of the chosen one. My hope for I would actually really love this. I think if this is the sort of future of the expansion, Illyria dies and is dead, right? And maybe there's some questing about how she is now in the Shadowlands, and you go to the Shadowlands to like bring her back or something. I would maybe be okay with it. But this brings kind of Sylvanas back into the story, and Sylvanas and Xalatath get to kind of square off. I actually think this would be excellent. I think that would be really awesome because it solves a lot of these other problems that I've talked about. Right now, I'm dealing with an A-list character. We have Vanis in here, right? We are not retreading. I have a little bit of Xalatath fatigue, to be honest with you, but I think the real fatigue that I have specifically with Xalatath is like Xalatath Illyria. The idea that I am now dealing with a completely different, sort of like Xalatath and Sylvanas are now fighting that's like actually pretty interesting to me. It's kind of way more interesting than Illyria, and it's interesting in a lateral sort of way. It's kind of like when so Doctor Doom is obviously the supervillain, arch nemesis of the Fantastic Four, and that's great, that's fine, right? But Doctor Doom actually has really great villain potential for both Doctor Strange and Iron Man. Because for Iron Man, he is also a guy wearing a big metal suit. And for Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom is also a really powerful sort of sorcerer. And that's a little bit of what I think would be cool about Sylvanas versus kind of like Xalatath in like whatever, 12.2 or something. You know, they do like a Return to Shadowlands quest or something like that. And like the end of the expansion is Sylvanas, Illyria, and Varisa fighting Xalatath. I could get on board with that kind of.
I my guess is like I think you might get a Three Sisters moment. I think you probably will get a Three Sisters moment.
Hmm.
But I think her role is ultimately going to be a bridge to the Last Titan. Like
Yeah, I think you're right.
there's her whole thing for like has or you know the big things I've been taking away from the Sylvanas appearances have been like, you know, something's fucking up with with the Shadowlands, right? Like things are not right, and I'm sure
Yep.
that's going to be like a massive plot point, right? Like at some point, and my expectation with that is that's going to be a pivotal point in the Last Titan where things get to like, you know, kind of like big cosmic level stakes again, as opposed to kind of like important but kind of relatively terrestrial stakes uh in Midnight. Um, but we'll see. So I don't think we're going to get as much as you would want out of her in this expansion. Um,
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I am definitely coping. This is more coping. I want just other people. I just don't like Erator, Terralion, and Illyrian. I just want somebody else to be the main fucking character. Is really what I'm going for.
like, you know, and maybe the answer is it doesn't make any sense. I know they're doing this
Yeah.
whole elves thing in this elves expansion, right? But like, why? Right? Like, is there like I
This
don't
is the
know.
part that's so insane about the Night Elves, right? Like the reason that it's vibes is if you think about it, it's kind of like have you ever uh I have a weird interaction with it. This is a little political, okay. There were a lot of Haitians in my high school, and they really hated being called African Americans. This was a big point of
Sure.
context in my high school. And the reason why is because they are not African. They are Haitian, right? They are from the island of
Yeah,
Haiti. They are Haitian.
Afro
Haitians.
Caribbeans tend to not want to be want to have a separate identification from like, you know, African
Yes.
Americans. Yeah,
Exactly. And it's that thing that is happening between the night elves and sort of the blood elves, right? The blood elves, the high elves, you know, even the stuff with the nightborn, right? Like they all have much stronger sort of ties, but really the only ties between the night elves and the blood elves is that like 10,000 years ago there was this offshoot of elves who were on the other continent and they ended up becoming, right, you know, first the high elves, then sort of like the blood elves. It's just like they're so far removed from this kind of like, it really doesn't make sense that anybody would go to the night elves next and go, please get me like involved in this thing, right? Like upgrade me into this thing, right?
yeah. No, I
um
uh, basically this is what I'm pointing at. Right, it feels like this weird
yeah.
kind of like I don't know, racially motivated in the fantasy sense, right? Like kind of thing that you know you would think
Yeah.
that like you know the alliances that they hold, you know, the alliance and the horde, right, would be more material to this conflict than you know the fact that they all have pointy ears, right? Like
Yep. I certainly agree with that. I also sort of think that it would have been, I don't know, it would have been a good opportunity to sort of do stuff with like the Horde Council, and now you have Gazlo, Gazlo and Thrall and the new guy who leads like the Dark Spear or whatever. I don't know. My
Gezo shows up for a second in Suleiman, right?
Herondar,
Oh, is
right?
it
Or
Herondar? No, you're right, it's Herondar. I think
yeah,
so.
he has a question in Herondar. This is part of like the everybody talks about how Herondar is supposed within, which I think is true, obviously, but I kind of think it's over. People don't really have a good understanding of this is like a layman don't understand game development well in my mind, because it's just like the kind of thing where like there are zones in Mists of Pandaria that are nothing like they were on the alpha. Just like this stuff changes all the fucking time. They cut an entire zone out of Warlords of Draenor. They cut an entire zone out of Legion. You know, it's like they make these kinds of changes. The idea that a zone goes from the War Within to to midnight doesn't really bother me all that much. But definitely 1000%, Gazlo in Herondar is like they kind of built most of that zone out for the War Within, and then they went, let's just put that one. Let's put it in the next expansion.
Yeah, it also seems the most kind of separate. Like the Void Spire stuff at least seems like nominally tied back into everything.
Yep.
Herondar really feels entirely, uh, kind of separated out.
Yeah. I don't get it, to be honest with you, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah. Anything
Anyway,
else? Yeah.
I don't know. We have reached deep in time.
Um, what one last thing, just because I've been watching it on the how do you feel about the current state of the economy? Like I obviously only am looking at like the WoW economy, to be clear.
Right.
I'm only looking at it through like the engineer's lens, but the prices on the auction, like the price for metals, except for silver, seems to be very high. And and the what's it called? The like, I know I guess it's because you can recycle the recycled parts out of anything. The recycled parts for engineers are very cheap, but like the actual things the engineering parts that you would recycle from, like what you would assume would be like the kind of natural progression, are very expensive. And I see this kind of like, the blue tools seem to be going for about 10K a piece, with the exception of like, I don't know, the ones I can make, that at least the miner's hat is more expensive, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, I have not gotten really deep into it. Which is, what I'm focused on right now is like gearing up all of my I feel like I'm putting together my engine. I want to get a big crafting engine up and running. I've experimented a little bit. I put together some greens. You and I had a conversation, and I was just like, let me test this out. So I put together 5-star greens, and I haven't been able to sell them very efficiently at all. They have all made money, which is nice, because they're selling for like 2.5K, and that's a pretty good rate, so like they're all sort of like profitable, but they're just not moving. And that's kind of my problem at the moment with this stuff. I think I am going to transition once I'm, because right now I'm still like farming out blues for my own squad, right? Like
Right.
I'm trying to kit my whole crew out in blues. I think I am going actually pretty soon to sort of become uh a like I will be putting blues up on the auction house for money, and I will probably just ride that wave quite a long time. It's what I did last expansion. Is how I made all my blues, or where it's going to be at for sort of this one. The complicated piece is skinning, to be honest with you. All of the blue stuff requires these majestic materials from sort of skinning. I don't have a skinning army, which I did use actually quite a lot in the War Within to make money, because you could solo this things quite easily. So I had 3 different skinners who I would just log on every day, and I would go and doing the sort of beast. Right now I only have 1 of those. Engineering is sort of nice. Engineering was the hardest one for me in the War Within. It is now the easiest because it's so goddamn cheap. Tailoring is extremely cheap, except for anything that requires Arcana Weave and Sunfire. Then it gets crazy. So these are like the blue, the blue sort of things. I don't know. Blacksmithing has been tough. Jewel crafting is extremely tough. Jewel crafting, I think, is the hardest. I actually leveled. I always do a different kind of configuration depending on where my like needs are, right? So for instance, in Dragonflight, I had like 1 jewel craft. I think Dragonflight and War Within, I had 1 crafter, but I had 2 leather workers. I upgraded that to 3 leather workers in the War Within because I needed an extra sort of just outlet to turn those like beast fangs, whatever they were called. And this expansion, I have a 2nd jewel crafter because jewel crafting master is so crazy. I only have 1 leather worker this time around, but I will probably upgrade that relatively soon. And I think I'm just slower on the uptake than I was. I got a lot of characters up and running very quickly in the Thin and Dragon. I have not been able to do that as in Midnight. They really slowed me down. So that's kind of where I'm at with the economy. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to talk about this?
I don't know. I guess we are coming to the end of it.
We did so just kind of your first. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down on Midnight so far?
I'm thumbs up on Midnight so far. I am thumbs up on Midnight so far for a couple of reasons. Number one, my main mode of interacting with the game is dungeons. Dungeons are great. They are the greatest that they've been since Shadowlands, probably. We'll see, right? Like on high keys. I love that. Number two, I really love specifically Eversong and Zulaman. And I love that we are playing in a sandbox that feels like it fucking matters. That is huge to me. War Within, even Shadowlands had this problem, right? Like Shadowlands, I was dealing with A-list characters, but we were in fucking an alternate dimension, which is I kind of hate that stuff in general. And so I love that I'm sitting in Eversong Woods sort of stuff and dealing with the consequences of like quests from classic in Zulaman. Like that kind of stuff is amazing. So I'm pretty up on it on that level. I'm down on it on the main story because I don't like the Wind Run stuff. I don't really care that much about Illyria, Terralion, and Arator. And I wish that somebody else was kind of like taking the spotlight. And I like the sort of structure of the raids. And I guess the class changes are okay. I'm unaffected by the class changes on my most important character. And on my second most important character, we got there because it has a good Apex talent, but that's about it. So like when I combine all of that together, I actually feel probably better about Midnight than I did about both the War and Dragonflight, kind of on first blush, I would say.
I would agree with that. I think I'm basically in the same place. I'm a little bit less harsh on the story, but I care a little bit less, I think, in general about that kind of thing. Obviously, we have our we had our bitch sessions about like particular mechanics, but I think they're ultimately going to be fine. I will end up.
The interesting thing is going to be how it grows. Dragonflight, I actually think kind of had a great the thing I liked about Dragonflight was the first raid was incredible. We talk about the Vault of the Incarnates all the time as like a kind of high water. It is just one of the best raids I think that they've done in the modern era of WoW. But I actually don't think that Dragonflight came online until season 3, and I think that may be true for Midnight as well. The War Within, I actually think, is the opposite. The War Within, I think, lost momentum. It started quite strong, but it lost momentum in both Undermine and Koresh. We'll just have to sort of see where the next patches and everything else kind of brings it, I think.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think I'm basically there too. I don't know. We're pretty late already. I think
we're pretty late already.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll cut. Do you have anything in particular you want to talk about with your week?
No, I mean all I've been doing is stuff. We can talk about whatever Magic and D&D stuff. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. I'll just say like I played Marathon a bunch. I like Marathon. I played Crimson Desert. Didn't like it so much. I played Lost Witch, Veil of the Eidolons. Didn't like it so much. I can go into those, but I'll go into that some other time because we're already at like an hour 40, and I don't want to talk that much longer.
Yep.
All right. With that, I will say, if you'd like to email us about anything we talked about on this podcast, email us at derpsgames@gmail.com or podcast@derpsgames.com. You can watch on twitch.tv/derpsgames or podcast.com or podcast@derpsgames.com. Rate and reviews wherever you find podcasts. All the links will be down in the description. Buddy, you have anything else you're looking to promote?
The Kumitante release date is out. So Kumitante is coming out on April 23rd, so 2 or 3 weeks from now. I don't know. Do you know about Danganronpa? Do you understand like the Danganronpa fandom and all that stuff?
I understand. I saw your retweet of that person that was like, stop using us about like, this fan project that had like an abuser or something associated with it. So I was like, okay. If you want to explain that, feel free. I'm sorry, I just kind of dropped that as a bomb at the end of the podcast.
It was wild the way that I saw it. I don't know. This is I don't want to explain. It's fine.
I don't know a ton about Danganronpa. I know it's a thing that exists. It's like an anime thing, right? Like,
yeah, it's a visual novel thing.
Okay.
A little battle royale Ace Attorney, because you have to like you're doing a little bit of detective work and stuff like that. But it's really about the characters and all that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's called Kumite.
Kumitante.
Right. Kumite, yeah. I think it's like a fighting tournament. So Kumitante, check it out. All right. With that, I'm going to say until next time, dear listeners.
Until next time, loyal listeners.